Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for another edition of MalleTalk. We are going to be talking today about the Escape 10 series, and with us we have Annie Stevens. Hello, Annie.
Hello.
And Andrea Venet. Hello, Andrea.
Hello.
Also known as Escape 10. So kept the name consistent with the ensemble. Excited to dig in and talk with you guys about this. I always find these to be really interesting. To learn a little more about the development process, how you guys, kind of saw it from your end. Just let people know how this came together and what the experience was like, what the mallets are best for. So let's jump right into it. So how did this all start for you guys? Like, where did the concept of, hey, you know what, there's an opportunity for us to develop something here that isn't on the market yet. We have some ideas. Mr. Stevens, come here, let us talk to you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
Well, I think we play chamber music together, and I think we always have used a lot of the MalleTalk mallets, like within the whole catalog of mallets, and tried to maximize the different sounds that we could get with the repertoire we were playing. But I think ultimately we really wanted to find mallets that were working well for the repertoire that we were playing, and then also with our students, because we do a lot of chamber music with our students in percussion ensemble, and just really wanted to find something that was really versatile within, percussion ensemble and chamber music with duos and trios and quartets, mixed instrumentation. And we just felt that we wanted to find something that was really acute with that and that would work in a lot of different applications. So we started talking to Lee and to try to come up with, something that we felt was going to be aligned with our taste as far as musical sound and timbre, and what would just actually and be really applicable with percussion ensemble and chamber percussion, I think.
Yeah, so something that has a lot of versatility to it, sounds like. So with that, maybe Annie, can you talk a little bit about, like, if you had to describe the line of mallets to another colleague or a student, these mallets sound like this, perform like this. How would you describe that?
So we have two different types of wraps on these mallets. You can see them right behind Andrea. We have the blue yarn wrap, which is kind of more similar to your traditional marimba mallet that you see in the MalleTalk line. And we really like the weight. We were going after something that is on the heavier side, not too heavy, but something that would capture the entire spectrum of the marimba, for the demands of 5-octave repertoire in chamber music. And so these mallets, I think, just have a nice weight to them. They project really well, especially when we're playing duos together. We can really kind of more or less feel what the other person is doing. So that's working really well for us with these mallets. And then the other type of mallet that we have is more of your traditional vibraphone type wrapped mallet. And so the lavender there. And so that mallet is great because it captures a little bit of a different sound. We love, like, if you were looking for a mallet for, say, like a Steve Reich piece, that and you don't want to go straight to a rubber mallet, this kind of mallet works really well for that. There's a harder mallet and a softer mallet in that line. And also really great if you have to play, if you're playing a vibraphone plus, let's say, cowbells or woodblocks or something else. These are like a mixed media type mallet that work well for the demands of a multi-mallet percussion setup. Yeah.
It's really interesting because the entire line itself, a lot of times lines are developed to have like purposeful continuity, where really the only gradations you might have would be the hardness or softness combined with maybe the addition or subtraction of weight. But the way that your guys' mallets are actually laid out, you have the 10, which is the kind of the traditional, marimba style mallet wrapped in yarn. 14 similarly, but then kind of juxtaposed in between that, you have the 12 and the 16, which look more like vibraphone mallets or more of a cord wrapped mallets. And it kind of provides I think a really interesting combination, because you have these two types of mallets that are literally kind of, as I say, juxtaposed in the same set. So that was a purposeful design by you guys. That was really interesting. And then of course we got the big boy at the bottom, the 5. Talk a little bit about the 5 specifically. We call that the fat bass model.
Fat bass. I think that's one of our favorites, I guess, because it's kind of unique. The color's awesome, of course, but they are big, heavy, like a medium mallet that has a lot of weight. So it's a really full sound with a lot of fundamental, and it's on rattan so that there's some give there with that weight, and it's intended for bass marimba parts. Like if you're playing a xylophone rag with a quartet, you know, the bass marimba part. And, you know, we've used them in several different applications, you know, as a bass mallet. What's nice about within the line, we have the 3 yarn wrapped blues set, and you can graduate those together. So graduating the 14s with the 10s or the 5 with the 10s. Right. I use the 5 as a bass mallet all the time. But the 5s are also really nice because they speak across the entire range of the instrument pretty much. I mean, they'll still get some sound at the very top octave, but really the bottom like 4 octaves, they project really well. So it's not just a bottom octave sort of bass mallet. You get some articulation that's nice and warm, you know, through most of the range of the instrument. So that's why I think they're really versatile, you know, because sometimes if you're hanging out and you're mostly on the bottom of the instrument playing a bass part, but you've got to move up in the range a little bit, you don't have to do a crazy mallet change because they'll work for you really well in the mid range of the instrument.
Yeah, and they're also like they're weighty, and they're really kind of fundamental heavy mallets, but they still have clear articulation, which is really important because that's the one thing that you're always craving in the lower register of the instrument, especially if you're playing a bass line. You know, a bass lines typically are going to be, you know, a little bit more rhythmic, a little more steady, and that little bit of crispness and articulation really tends to help that. So you have a concept, and you guys, of course, are in cahoots talking all the time about what you really want, what you need, even thinking about programmatically what pieces this is going to work well on. Let's talk about the development process. What was that like? What was because I'm assuming this is the first time you guys ever developed products together, you know? Yeah. So talk us a little bit, you know, what was that experience from your end? Of course, I know what it was like from my end, but I would love to hear kind of your experience as performing musicians. What was that like?
Well, it was really great working with Lee. I mean, he's just the mastermind behind how the mallets work and what the material on the inside of the mallet, how the smallest change to, you know, the weight or the material inside can make a huge difference on the way that the mallet's going to sound across the instrument. And so we would kind of express to him, this is the sound that we're looking for, and this is the weight that we're looking for. And then he would send us prototypes, and it was a lot of prototypes. It was, you know, a lot of mallets coming our way, lots of different yarn to try out. You know, he would constantly tweak a lot of it was tweaking the weight on the inside of the mallet, and then the amount of wraps that the mallet was getting, and that those kind of small, and the smallest changes would change drastically the sound of the mallet. So we were going back and forth quite a bit with him. I think he did give us an award for the most amount of prototypes to make a mallet.
And you know what?
It did happen in the middle of this also. So
we weren't able to travel to New Jersey to do this in person, which I think would have helped, you know, kind of speed up the process. But
yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I've for various projects, I've done this and worked with people like yourselves. And, you know, communication and making sure that you have really clear descriptions are really important, because, you know, what Lee might hear from you, or what I might hear from you, hey, we want a mallet that does this. The mallets you sent us, you know, are doing well in these aspects, but are a little bit lacking here. There's lots and lots of things on the factory side that can be done beyond just, you know, additional weight, less weight, you know, more wraps, less wraps. We call it, especially with this one, I remember a lot of variations on the wrap recipe itself, because there's a lot of parameters that MalleTalk can control with regards to the wrap that go beyond, do we wrap it an additional 10 times or not? And I imagine it's an exploratory process, you know, because you have in your head what you're desiring to achieve, and we're trying to take that abstract and turn it into reality. So, but I think they sound great. They function wonderfully, and they look absolutely amazing. I love the photography that we got of these. I love the color. They're like, you could see them from a mile away. So I'm not sure how you guys landed on those colors, but congratulations, because they're some really pretty mallets.
They actually match our latest album, and that wasn't really intentional, but our most recent album called Colors of a Groove, it's got the same lavender and teal. I think we both like these colors a lot, and they're different, but they are complementary.
Right. Yeah, they are. They work really. It's easy to distinguish because they are different colors, but those two colors work really beautifully together.
I agree. Yeah.
So what, you know, there's other ensemble mallets out there, you know, other brands, other series, things have been around for a while. Talk to us a little bit about what you feel makes these unique. What do these do that others don't? What roles do these fulfill that maybe other mallets don't do as well?
I think clarity is the first thing that comes to mind when I think about our mallets, especially if you're playing, you know, in the top 2/3 of the marimba, and you need let's just give a marimba one part out of a marimba quartet, for example, and they need that projected clarity. Let's say there's a lot of a mallet component coming across in that part, particularly the Escape 14s, the blue wrap there behind Andrea, are perfect for that type of clarity. And again, just like getting that weight through the ensemble, but not overplaying the instrument, is what these mallets allow you to do. And so the clarity of the different parts coming through the ensemble are what our mallets are really geared towards.
Okay, Andrea?
Well, I think like the 14s speak really well at the top of the instrument, but also the 16s, which are the hard version of the chord wrap kind of vibraphone mallet, those really pop on the very top of the instrument. And so it gives you, it's not it's not too harsh and abrasive when you're getting clarity at the top of the instrument. So that pairs well when I think our intention was that you could use these mallets adjacently with each other. So, you know, not everybody in the ensemble has to have the same type of wrap of mallet, because if you have a high marimba part versus a bass marimba part, you know, it helps them be distinct, but the sounds work together. Or you can go all with the chord wrap sound or with the marimba sound. You know, if you've got rolls, you know, the yarn wrap, these are more traditional marimba mallets. So if you're going between rolls and things that are not rolled, that works really well. I think these, they have articulation across the whole instrument. And the 12s, actually, I think the 12s are a really great general mallet because you can use them on the bottom of the instrument. You know, you have to be careful with any mallet, of course, but like really, like we've used them, like you can play on within the bottom few octaves of the instrument and it works, but there's enough of an articulation, a little smack to them that you get articulation without it just being a harder core or a heavier mallet. And so I think it's just, you can, you know, mix and match and you can have voices come out that you want to come out, which is really nice. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I will say too that they work really well as like solo and duo mallets. Like I use the 10s all the time for solo stuff, and like a lot of my students do as well. And so I think like being versatile, I mean, I think they're heavy enough to project and get a good sound, but they're not so heavy where it's like, you know, some of the outdoor like marching mallets are really, really heavy. And so I think it's a good weight where they feel good in your hands and you can use them for solo stuff, for really small chamber stuff. You know, ensemble.
Yeah, you made a point. I actually want to come back to, because I think it's a really, really nice feature of the line as a collection. You know, I'm thinking about me as an ensemble director, ensemble leader, my percussion ensemble. If I had these for my percussion ensemble, the collection together gives me the ability to determine whether or not I want a specific section or an ensemble or piece to have more of a homogenized sound, where I might want to use, you know, the 5 in combination with the 10 and the 14, because those are the traditional, you know, yarn wrapped mallets. Or do I want to really hear the clarity of the internal parts, which is, you know, I call it like the X factor. It's one of those things where you're like, I don't know why this group sounds so fantastic. I mean, they're playing well, but there's just something about them. And a lot of times it's just the clarity of all those inner parts and being able to hear how those rhythms complement each other, how those harmonies complement each other. And this collection allows you to determine and kind of nuance which route you want to go and how far you want to go down that route. You know, one thing I do want to mention, just for anybody that's watching that might not know the method to the MalleTalk madness, say that 5 times in a row, is the number system is really, really important and gives you a little bit of an understanding in terms of the hardness of the mallets. So, you know, we've mentioned that there's 5s, there's 10s, there's 12s, there's 14s, and there's 16s. And those help to delineate the mallets in terms of hardness, with 5 being on the softer end of the spectrum and 16 being on the harder end of the spectrum. So just for context for everybody, I just wanted to mention that. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, you mentioned a little bit about applications of the mallets. How would you use, like, you know, ideally, if you were going to go the route of using the 5, the 10, and the 14 and get that homogenized sound? Talk us a little bit about maybe how you'd program for that. You know, what types of literature, what types of pieces or situations would be best if you're moving down that route. And then let's talk a little bit about how you would mix and match to get really good clarity. How do you guys use the mallets?
Well, I did just program Andrea's marimba quartet called Refract. And these mallets work beautifully for that piece. Because what's great about that piece is that there's different sections. There's a very beautiful lyrical middle section where the bass marimba player can pick up the fat bass mallets, the 5s, and that part just completely changes the sound all of a sudden for that middle section of the piece. But it was wonderful having some people with the 10s and then the 14s to have that homogenized sound amongst a marimba quartet, but still being able to hear the clarity of those parts. So that piece in particular, I just programmed, and I love it. I think it's a great piece for ensembles to be playing. It works really well with the mallets.
Oh, thanks, Amy. I think Fractalia is a really popular marimba quartet where they're playing concert toms and drums and marimbas, and we programmed that within the last year at UNF, and the 12s and the 16s worked really well for that piece because, you know, they're all over the place, and there's close. Yeah, there's like usually there's 2 bass, you know, marimba players that stay pretty low. So the 12s for them worked. And then, you know, we kind of graduated with some 16s for the top marimba parts, but then they work really well on the drums as well. So that was like that. I was very pleased with that. And in a large hall, you know, where there's a lot of resonance, there was so much clarity. I was really surprised, actually. I was very happy with that. So, and that's what you want, you know, because marimbas in a huge room can get kind of muddy. But that, you know, I think the extra attack on the 12s and the 16, the 12s and the 16s, that extra bit of attack and kind of smackiness kind of takes the place of just going harder. So it's like, you know, ice pick in the forehead. Core hardness, but I think that articulation really helps.
Yeah. The 12s are listed as marimba / mixed media. The 16s are listed as marimba vibe multi-mixed media. So there's obviously lots and lots of applications for those mallets individually.
They all work well on gongs too.
On gongs, well, yes.
My concerto, and I use the 5s and the 12s.
There's nobody that would know better than you.
And cowbells, they work.
Yes. Awesome. So, at the risk of dating this video, it is the end of 2022. It is December. What do we have in store for Escape 10 in 2023? What can we be looking out for?
Dr. Stevens.
Well, we are really thrilled to be presenting the U.S. premiere of a new double concerto by John Sothis called The All-Seeing Sky. It's for marimba and vibraphone and orchestra. So we'll be giving that U.S. premiere down in Virginia on March 25th in Roanoke. So with the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra. So we're very excited to be presenting that.
Is that going to be live streamed by any chance?
It will not be live streamed. So it's you know, you got to get your tickets. You got to travel to Roanoke.
All right. Anything else exciting in the near future?
And some international performances.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Where are you guys going? Is it secret yet, or?
We haven't signed anything yet, so.
Okay, all right. We'll keep
I'll be in Argentina with you. I mean, yeah, we're working it out. Like the planning for the summer starts to happen now, so we're hoping to,
That sounds fantastic.
Gigs, yeah.
Good. Well, Andrea, Annie, thank you so much for hopping on and talking with me a little bit about the mallets. And hopefully everybody that's watching got some really valuable insight, understands the series better, understands where they came from a little bit better, got a peek behind the curtain in terms of the development process. And it's just generally tuned into what the Escape 10 mallets have to offer.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Happy holidays. And we will see you guys soon.
Okay.
Sounds good.